the next three policies were up for action tonight, but I think this is a first reading. Is that correct? As we typically do, we bring these for a first reading and let them sit before we vote on these. So, Mrs. Combs, I'm going to ask you just to go through each one of these to highlight what we're asking the board to consider.
Okay, the first one, IGEE, addresses the awarding of high school diplomas to veterans of war. You, as a board, had approved that a number of years ago. This language adds the opportunity for any woman who has participated, has been a member of the armed services, or who had to leave school in order to help her family or to support the war effort and did not graduate. It expands it to include women as well as the veterans of Vietnam and also of the Korean conflicts.
Is this a recommended policy coming from OSBA, or is this just...
This language reflects law, yes.
Changes, okay. So this is a law change? I guess I would normally just say let's approve it, but since we have two board members absent, we'll just leave it like that.
Yeah, typically we'll table it.
Okay.
JECAA, admission of homeless students. This one clarifies a little bit more clearly what identifies a student who is homeless. And it also includes students who might be living in campgrounds as well as facilities for the homeless. And it addresses the needs of migrant students as well. These are additions to the former policy.
And again, these are coming through via law changes?
The language in the law, yes.
Okay.
All right. How does the addition of the migratory students really relate to this?
For the most part, they don't have permanent homes. They are living in a variety of locations, and they just wanted to make sure that districts were accepting those students in the same fashion that they do any homeless student.
Is there state law as far as the admissions, enrollment papers that a student brings to our district that we must have from them in order to enroll them in our district?
Yes, there are specific pieces. The birth certificate is the big one. And proof of residency is one that trips up, and that's what this policy addresses, because people who are living, for example, at Hope House don't have an address. Migratory families may not have a permanent address.
Well, I asked Saturday at the legislative session, we're looking at enrollment and papers required for students to move back and forth between charter, community schools, and school districts, and that notification of the state of enrollment and also the leaving of a student is often sort of lost. And that compounds, you know, all the efforts to have monies follow students.
For treasurers.
And I just wonder, you know, with these types of situations, do we then, or is the district responsible for completing paperwork for these students?
We're responsible for tracking it down as best we can. When a student moves into the district, we, as the receiving district, have to contact the school district they came from to get all of that information. It's our responsibility, and vice versa. If they leave, it's the responsibility of the district where they end up to request that information from us.
Okay. Thank you.
Final policy is JHCD. This one is addresses administering medicines to students. Several years ago, the legislature approved the ability for students to carry asthma inhalers with them if a district chose to adjust their policy to include that. And in March of this year, they also extended that to EpiPens for children who are allergic, for example, to bee stings. Or to an allergy, a food allergy, that this is an immediate way to address that particular issue, which could be very dangerous. So this particular change actually is in the regulations, which allows students to carry them if their physician goes through a few things, and the physician actually has to train the child and sign off that he or she is confident that the child can handle this.
So again, they just can't walk in with an EpiPen. They've got to come to the office. They need certification from the physician that they know how to use it. So
currently, many students bring EpiPens, and they're located in the clinic. Actually, I don't imagine there's going to be too many elementary children who will want to do this, but there would very possibly be high school students who might be involved in athletics, who would be in a away game. This would be something that would be important for them to have.
Does this increase any liability risk?
No, it specifically states that. In all of the paperwork that both the parent and the physician have to sign off on. There are samples of that. The green piece at the back gives you an example of what the physician has to complete.
But in reality, you can never release yourself from negligence.
Well, I mentioned earlier, talking with a school nurse, and just the numbers of students that we have in our district who have medical conditions that require administration of medicines during the school day, and other very individual needs. It's quite a production.
Okay.
again, we'll
Okay,
bring that back for second reading. Okay.
That concludes student services.